What are you at, boys? Hello. And welcome to Tales with TR. I'm your host, Terry Ryan Jr. This is episode 194A. Excited to announce that at 194B, will feature my old buddy, Brad Brown. I've had him on here before. And Brownie lives in Ottawa now. 330 games played in the National Hockey League. Big, tough, stay-at-home D. First-round pick the year before me to the Montreal Canadiens, of course. And one of my oldest friends in hockey. One of my real close friends. Of course, I have friends going back to when I started skating, 4 and 5 years old. Hello, Jeremy Charles, Gary Clark, Stephen Kwan, and on. But Brad and I had a lot in common. Got drafted to Montreal back-to-back. He went in 94, I went in 95, both first-round picks. So there's a bond there that, because we understand what that's like. I can talk about it a lot. It's good, bad, ugly. It's everything. Not much ugly, I guess. But there's ups and downs. And to go through that with Brad as a young... And we both needed to work on our skating. So we went everywhere from, I remember going to Sweden with Brad, training, going to Montreal early, Brock University, St. Catharines there. We put time in. We worked on our skating. And Brad ended up, he got traded from Montreal. When I left there, he got traded from Montreal to Chicago. And he never really looked back. He played parts of the next, outside of being healthy, scratched, he wasn't down. Played most of the next 6 or 7 seasons in the NHL. And, big, tough, stay at home. And real good guy, good player. Brad fought a lot. Off the ice, it's not really in his nature. Well, I mean, it's not in many of... I don't mean fight. I mean, who goes out and just grabs people at a car wash and gets in fights at a drive-thru or some shit? I don't mean that. I know it happens. But Brad isn't physically imposing. He doesn't get in your... if we're having a beer at the bar, Brad's not one to wear a fucking, muscle shirt and fucking get in your face. Did you call me an asshole? He doesn't do that stuff. Some people, I guess, what I'm trying to say is when they drink, they might be a little more tense. They might be a little bit more reactionary. They might be looking for an altercation. Aaron Asham, I often say, Ash doesn't start fights. He's not an asshole like that. But if he's having a few beer, especially, and you're in a bar, and there are, we've been in a lot of situations together, you don't want to poke that bear, right? Because Ash will come right back at you. Not saying he's looking for it, but he's real tough off the ice. He grew up tough off the ice. Multiple fights off the ice, like beyond when you're 10 years old, means there's something either in your psyche or where you hang out, or even the fact that you will entertain street fights. And Ash not only entertained them, he won a lot of them. I don't know him to ever start one. Nice guy, respectful, ask anybody who ever came across him. But if you're in a bar, I remember once we were at a golf tournament. We're at his own golf tournament, Aaron Asham's own golf tournament, okay? This was probably 10 years ago now. And I think it was right around that, 10 years ago. And we had this, so after the tournament, we went to Boston Pizza. And Ash got up and gave a bit of a speech. Well, we didn't all just go there. There was an event there, right? So it was the golf tournament awards and speech, whatever they do. I remember I had to get up and say a few words. But they had it at Boston Pizza. Awesome sponsor in Portage la Prairie. And everybody's having a good time. But when Ash got up to speak, there was a guy, he felt, speaking a little bit louder than everybody else. And I remember this guy was with a couple of girls, and they weren't there for the tournament. They were just there to eat, which is fine. But literally every single other person in that room at Boston Pizza that night were with the tournament. And so anyway, this guy just kept talking louder and louder. And Ash finally said, "Hey, buddy, you shut the fuck up." He said it on the mic at his tournament. And then anyway, he didn't. He did for like 5 minutes. And then he said, Noof, go over tell that guy to shut the fuck up or I'm going to shut his mouth for him. Okay. And I'm like, okay, just think this out. We're at I think it was called Aaron's Chance to Play golf tournament. We raise money that go towards kids in the community that don't have enough money for sports registration or equipment. I mean, a valiant cause, a real noteworthy, important cause in that area. Well, in any area. But for Aaron, he's from Portage, and he was in that position once himself. So he likes to go back to Portage and, raise some money for people that were in his position. Anyway, for fuck's sakes, man, he finally said, okay, buddy, shut the fuck up or I'll meet me outside. And he's on the mic at his own golf tournament. Sure enough, we went outside. And this guy, I just said, hey, dude, you got to fucking lay off. Either get the fuck out of here now. You got two girls that are it's not that he had two girls, but they were having fun. You and your friends, I'm like, you're having fun. It's not going to be much fun if you stay out here right now. And if Aaron comes out, and this guy was way bigger. But anyway, he got the drift. And Ash was right in his face. You want to do something, do it right now. This is his fucking golf tournament. Anyway, that guy left. But others not so much. I'll have Aaron on again soon to retell some stories he's told on here, but because I know I have a new audience. I think the first time I had him on was like at the very beginning. I don't even know when that was, 3.5 years ago. And remember him talking about it. I've had him on since, and we haven't really spoken about that, but I feel I have a much bigger audience now and a more diverse audience. You're going to want to hear this. This guy, I've seen him fucking punch out bikers in a bar, like more than once. Like, anyway, I won't get into it, but Aaron is that guy you don't want to piss off. Brownie is a teddy bear off the ice. He turns into more of one under drinks. I get like Ron McLean, very inquisitive. I start talking. I want to hear either music or have a conversation about something obscure, right? That's where I want to go. And usually, I mean, it's not why I have a beer. I'm just telling you what normally happens after a couple of, and the whole women, when I go out and have a few drinks, usually it's after or during, it's a Friday or Saturday here. Go down, have a bite to eat, have a few drinks, maybe chase some skirts, like all of those things. To me, it's, hey, any good looking women around here? Any great music around here? Any of the boys around want to have, those are the things I'm after, really. A good time. And, the more interesting conversations, the better. But with and Brownie's, well, anyway, Ron McLean is like that. Brownie's similar in that just give me some great music, some friends, and let's have a chat. He's been happily married now to Jan Marie, my friend, that I met when I met Brownie. That would be the mid-'90s, right after I was drafted. So he's not so much chasing skirts, and he's really not. He's a real loyal, great husband. Well, I assume I know he's loyal. I don't know how much of a great husband he is. I assume that he's an awesome father, that they're still together and they still speak highly of each other. It's a very rare thing in the marriage world, at least I've come to realize. And as I continue to get older, there's as many divorces or more than there are weddings each year. So I think the whole institution is a bit of a sham. Being marriage. Ask Bird Dog. Bird Dog and his girl Tammy never got married. And they were probably the happiest I've seen any couple. Rest in peace, Bird. And, being with one person the rest of your life works for a lot of people. I haven't found that. I'm not looking for it. And I don't think I'd be good at it. I've tried now twice, been divorced twice. And in each instance, I'm not saying I was the reason. I mean, there's reasons. But if you were to talk to me during the divorces, I would probably give you my point of view. I can't do this. I can't be with her because of this. I can't. But it was the same the other way around. I'm sure I'm not easy to be with, especially if I go to the bar and I'm drinking, I'm flirting. You don't have to even take girls home, but you're flirting with them. Maybe there's something there. Danielle used to say that. Fuck, you're going out, you're flirting with them. I'm like, I'm not flirting. I'm just being myself. What's the difference if I only flirt? But then even when we got home, this counts my first wife, Jennifer. I like my free time. I like to just be able to smoke a J and listen to fucking Abbey Road, right? Like whenever I want. I like to schedule out my days. I got the radio show coming up, Gregor's radio show. I'm doing this today. I'm taking Penny Lane to soccer. I like to do those sort of things whenever the fuck I want to do them. Basically, I like my independence. And there are girls that I've met that I'm sure would be fucking unreal girlfriends. Neither wife was horrible. They were awesome people. Now, was there reasons on their part that I couldn't be with them? 100%. But it stems from that's my own projection of it because it's my point of view. But I'm sure they didn't enjoy certain quirks. Again, I get home. I'm not that cuddly dudley, I'm just not. I'm not saying the sex lacked or anything, or that there was. I showed affection a lot, It's just I like my independence, and some people see, and like sometimes a lot of it, and I guess maybe that can be seen as selfish, or if you're in a relationship, not ideal. And I admit all this. I think it's hard. Not that anybody asked, but just think about the fucking institution of marriage, right? It's just something we made up. And a lot goes into it. And at first, when you're with somebody, and it's a real combination of lust and like, and when you're in your 20s or even 30s, like you're young or I guess in age doesn't, but when you're in your 20s, say, like whoever you're looking at is probably the best they're ever going to look, right? Now wait till you have kids and it's normal, and you spend 10,000 plus hours with each other, right? Or more obviously. And it's not such a novelty anymore. And as you get older and everything, and you so to stick with someone and have to be on the same level sexually, mentally, I don't find it necessary. And B, it's real hard, right? It's a real hard thing to do. I can tell you now, not only from my own personal experience in being married twice and having lots of girlfriends that were awesome, but I just had to break up with, for one reason or another. And it's on top of everything. It's hard to stay faithful for the next whatever. You're like 20 on the altar. I do. Now, really think about that. As each day passes, and you're never, ever, even though it's in human nature to be attracted to other people of the opposite sex. So at the very least, you're going to like be attracted and not do it because out of respect for your husband or your wife. Or if you're, same thing, I guess, if you're gay, the exact same rules apply, right? You're going to be attracted to somebody else. And even if you show a little bit of flirtation or whatever, and usually if human history is any bit of an indicator, I don't care how rich you are, how poor you are, how, like Chris Rock says, you're as faithful as your fucking options, right? All those people shitting on Tiger Woods. Oh, he's got his life. His wife was awesome. Well, I'm dating myself now. I guess probably 15 years ago when you remember that when he got caught with all the texts or other people were, and it turns out he wasn't an asshole. He wasn't a sexual predator or anything. He just had a few partners, I guess, and that was news to his wife, who divorced him like she should have. But he was as faithful as his options. It's Tiger fucking Woods. You can only go to travel to so many places and be offered, the best looking women and food and drugs and whatever it is, time after time. You cannot be into drugs. That makes sense. You cannot be into booze. But human nature says, whether you're into guys or girls, if you're Tiger Woods, you're going to get 10s in both of it, 11s. Wherever you go. You can go to fucking San Francisco or fucking New York or fucking Fort St. John, BC. Or the North Pole. But your options are going to usually be very tempting. The best of the best. So, and that's Tiger Woods because he has those options. But someone who doesn't, it's easy for them to sit back and throw fucking daggers. But really, think about it. Think whoever I'm talking to now. First of all, I don't mean to be discouraging. I hope you find somebody. I don't necessarily, it's like Bird Dog, you don't have to marry them. But I hope each and every one of you find happiness and joy in whoever you're into. Guys, girls, whatever. But I just think it's hard. And the main reason, I guess, my main reason would be sexual temptation from the point you're getting that married until you die. That's a big commitment. It's way bigger than people realize. Even though they know what they're doing, they consciously think about it. I don't think they realize all that time, right? It's a lot of time. But anyway, if you look at marriage, what's the divorce rate now, I think? So of the people who get married, the divorce rate, I think, is 60-odd% now, right? So only 30-something% stay together. Now, of the people that stay together, a large portion of those, just think about it honestly, are cheating, but they either don't get caught or they can't get divorced. They're either too lazy or it's going to cost them financially. And it does, right? So a lot of people stay together or for the kids. So people are together because either they're cheating and they're getting away with it, or they have kids, or financially it just makes the most sense to stay together. And that's of the 30-something% remaining. I'm saying that's a lot. I'm going to say 20-odd%. I am. And now I'm going to go. So, I mean, who knows? The facts are that it's 60-odd% divorce, though. And you know that some percentage, maybe it's not 20-odd%, but there is a big percentage left over that, like I said, cheat and get away with it. Stay together for the kids or stay together because they financially, it just makes the most sense. They can't afford to get divorced. And then there's a chunk of those two that are swingers that I guess the whole sex thing doesn't apply because they realize this. And I'm not into that either, by the way. If I'm going to have a girlfriend or a wife, I'll have them and I'll give my best. But I don't look down on anybody that would be into that. It used to be seen so crazy. But, you know, a lot of people now realize their marriage turns into a friendship. They got to spice it up, whatever. They find a third party or a fourth or fifth or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know what you're into, nor do I give a shit. But it takes a percentage off the board in this mental, whatever it is, graph that I'm trying to explain. So you got 10% or less that really get married and stay there to that one person the rest of their lives, right? Now, my parents are still together. They got married when they're 19. I don't want to get into personal problems or anything, but I know that it hasn't been a cakewalk. And I know that some of the things I talked about at different times pertained to them. I don't need to get into it. Do I think any less of them? No, not at all. I can't even believe that they're still together. They are. And it's a fucking unreal example for Penny Lane, for anybody, really, that they're still together and they live close by. But again, that's the minority, right? That's the minority. And it hasn't just been rainbows and ice cream cones the whole way, right? It's a lot to take on, man, marriage.
We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets, only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And why am I getting to that? I don't know. I was still trying to explain Brad Brown. Okay, so Brad has a very... I'll tell you something personally about Brad, though, yeah. I remember we lived in Freddie. That would have been 96, 97, okay? He's spoken about this in public before, so for those that think I'm about to sell him out, I'm not. But I remember that year he wanted to be sure because he was with Jan Marie. I think he met her in North Bay playing junior. She's from Toronto. He's from Toronto. Or maybe at Christmas. But it was, when he was back visiting Mississauga. But I know they were together. And when we lived together in Fredericton, I lived with him in 97, 98, I guess it would have been. I mean, like I lived with him in a house. Myself, him, and a guy named Earl Cronin, who was a college player, I think from Colgate, on a scholarship from the States. Well, he was from, I remember around, I think it was called Cranston, Rhode Island, maybe? It was Cranston. It was in that area, New England area. Anyway. And I remember Brownie, like he talking with Jan Marie, and he said, I didn't really break up with her. We nearly did, but he said, I want to be honest with her, and I want to take this year and see, and if I'm not living with her and I'm here and I have free reign to do whatever, and I still want her to be my wife, then I'll know. And sure enough, they agreed on that. And Brownie didn't. He realized he loved her so much that I can't remember when. It was some point in my mind, halfway maybe through the year, maybe after Christmas when they got together. He was like, no, I know I want to marry her. I know it. And I'm not sure how the conversation went between both of them, but I remember Jan Marie telling me that after. Yeah, we went into that year thinking that we were just going to date whoever and do whatever, and we would have been free to do it. But they realized they loved each other, and it was long distance. And I remember even questioning at the time, not to be a dick, Jan Marie, but I was like, Brownie, you're down here in the minors, you're going to get together, whether you're going to get married, and then you're going to make the NHL, and you're going to have unbelievable options everywhere. And it might not be because of lack of love for her, but it's lost, and you're going to be in Chicago or New York, and a model is going to come over, and you're going to want nothing more than to just bang her that night and move on. But you can't if you're married. I'm just telling you that, trying to be a good friend. And I've done that here and there. And the odd time I'd be wrong, and I was wrong in that situation. They've got 3 beautiful kids. They're still married. They live in Ottawa. And so this, however I started this spiel, it's not like it's just, I respect it. But if you're going to get into it, know what you're getting into. And if you've already have been, there's people out there going, fucking rights, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. And anyway, it's for some reason, it's been twisted. This whole idea of marriage has been twisted into like church and into religion. It's to me, it's just one doesn't lead to the other. And the Bible, like briefly, trust me, I went to Catholic school. When I say I'm not overly religious, doesn't mean I'm not spiritual. And I know the teachings of the Catholic Church, and a lot of them are the same as the Protestant, the Anglican Church. My mom's Anglican. It's very, very similar religions. So I know from experience that the Bible doesn't spend a whole lot of time talking about marriage, and certainly not like we think of it today, right? With prenups, and it's more of a contract today. That doesn't really come up in the Bible either. The Bible's and people who follow the Bible are very picky, choosy in how they choose to interpret it, right? When it comes to everything, but especially when it comes to marriage. Anyway, getting back to Brad. Real interesting guy, and Brad found a way. I remember when we got to Freddie, he's a year older than me. And so Brad was there a year before me. So my last year junior, Brad, even though we'd met and we'd gone to Montreal camp, he was his first year pro. And I remember like when we met at camp the next year, he's like, yeah, they told me that I'd probably have a better chance if I was fighting all the time. Now he fought anyway. It's part of the reason he was drafted. When I played with Brownie, man, he took on the toughest stuff. Well, it was just, he went from like a first rounder that fought here and there to being an absolute heavyweight. I mean, he was a heavyweight in the O because he's big and he's tough, but when he got to Freddie, man, he took on he was like that Rempe coming in. I'll talk about that with him, that Matt Rempe on the Rangers, who's just fighting I mean, he can't keep doing that at that pace, you know. But Brownie was like that. Like he took on everybody's number one tough guy immediately. And here's a guy who and it was a choice to him, because if he was on the ice, I mean, he was a good teammate, so there was part of him that'd stick up for you anyway. But for Brownie to go hunt down fights, that's not really in his nature. But what is in his nature is a competitive spirit that, he was going to make the NHL somehow. And even though grabbing people is probably not in my nature, like I said, what is me being competitive. So that overrules that in this point, and I don't mind taking a punch. And in that process, he became real tough. Look at some of his fights. I mean, with absolute heavyweights of the era. And there were heavyweights in that era that really couldn't get a regular shift because they weren't good enough, but they could fight, right? That's how the game has changed a bit. Like even Rempe and Ryan Reeves and all the toughest guys, they can still play. And it happened back then, but there were people on each team that wouldn't be able to play. And Brownie was fighting them. And he's a first-round pick because he's big and he's a good defenseman. But, you do what it takes, and that's exactly what he did. So we're going to have Brownie on. I'm going to interview him here in about an hour, but we're going to put out these back-to-back, 194A, 194B. Now, next week, we're going to have a great guest. I think it's JR. Okay, I think it's Jeremy Roenick. We're still trying to... Yeah, I've been traveling so much, it's impossible to keep up. But... I'm still getting them done, albeit a day late here and there. But anyway, so on 195A, I'm going to talk a lot about the Beatles. Because I get all kinds of messages, and I don't want to narrow down my audience too much, right? And I know it's one thing to talk about music, but specifically Beatles, I know all you don't want to hear that, even though I'm really into them. I understand if you're not. But I get a lot of messages from Beatles fans can be cultish. And from all over the world. And people are like, you talk about music, why don't you talk about the Beatles more? The reason, I guess, is exactly that. People expect it. And I don't want to lose listeners of something that I passionately enjoy doing, talking about hockey for the most part, talking about life, and interviewing interesting people, for the most part, hockey players, but not always, right? So I like talking about music, and I will. But specifically Beatles, I don't do much. But on 195A, I just got a wicked book. It's each album broken down, and the Beatles were an album band, right? That's the thing that a lot of people say, give us your best song. Or even Kiso said, give me a playlist. Beatles, their best songs, say 20 best songs. But I'm like, I will. But the Beatles, it was about albums, and each album was light years ahead of the one before it. And before all the other artists could catch up to it, they'd outdo themselves again, right? Those that know the Beatles, just think about like Help. Early on, you can see them now. They're starting to write different songs. Right, the first few, Please Please Me, Beatles for Sale, with the Beatles. They were a lot of covers, a lot of stuff they did in the Cavern Club, and when in Liverpool, and then when they went to Hamburg, Germany, and really honed their craft as musicians. But it's a lot of poppy stuff. The first stuff they wrote, they're just getting to know each other and as songwriters, and just getting their feet wet. Great stuff now. But to me, it starts getting little bit deep with Help, the album Help. Even the song Help, the opener for the album Help. Very introspective, right? It's Lennon reaching out. Now their songwriting is not just like, if you think about Elvis or the Beach Boys or Buddy Holly or all kinds of popular acts that came right before them or during, given the Beach Boys. A lot of the songs were about women or cars or love or tragedy, right? And I think it might have been their Bob Dylan, but Bob Dylan was about anything. Okay, one of the best singer-songwriters. He was coming out at the time. I think 1964 was when Dylan plugged in. Type that in. Pissed off a lot of his fans. He went electric, right? Now he went worldwide after that. But he was writing about different things. And the Beatles themselves would tell you, well, two of them would, and the other two would if they could. They're dead. That was a big influence. So you really start seeing that on Help, in my mind. You see songs like I Need You, which isn't like isn't a major song, but to me it is, because it's George Harrison starting to write, right? And then you move on to Rubber Soul, was way like leaps and bounds, and like really they were starting to play with their studio a little bit, right? Backwards recordings and instruments that had never been used. And then and Norwegian wood. They just got back from India meeting the Maharishi, right? Those sitar gets used first time in popular music. And then Revolver is like the first psychedelic album. And the last song on Revolver, if you don't know, you'll never hear it on the radio. Tomorrow Never Knows, you'll never hear it on the radio. But it's innovative. It's like a lot of people call it the first kind of EDM. What would you call it? Dance techno, but it's along those lines. It's really different, right? And there's a lot happening. So give that a listen. Even if you're a Beatles fan, moderately, you probably don't even realize that song is as important historically as it is. But anyway, you hear that and you're like, okay, this is a band that's doing. This is new. This is wild. What's happening? Then it moves on, right? The White Album, the first double album. And now you're getting songs about animals, Rocky Raccoon and piggies, a metaphor for, a lot of elitists. And they're starting to really play with the instruments and with lyrics. And then you got Sgt. Pepper, arguably the most important record of its time. First concept album, right? First time lyrics appear on an album. Concept album, if listen to Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin, or I love Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's got some of my favorite albums ever. Let's say Dark Side of the Moon. But if you listen to Dark Side of the Moon, listen to the last half of Abbey Road and tell me that it's not influenced, right? And I love these. I'm not saying any of these bands are any better or worse than the Beatles. I'm just saying, like, a lot of what the Beatles were doing album to album was like, it was spurning all sorts of other bands and songs and ideas. Then you go from Sgt. Pepper to Abbey Road, and even Magical Mystery Tour, Let It Be, albums that aren't talked about as much, but great. And any other band would probably be their best album, but with the Beatles there was so much going on. But each album had something different and something new to give to music. So I look at the Beatles as an album band, and songs, it depends. Whatever mood I'm in, I guess, but the songs are almost secondary. Like if I okay, today I'm going to listen to the Beatles, in my head, what should I put on, Abbey Road or Sgt. Pepper today? Or, that's the way I think. Not like, let's load up Spotify, Yesterday, Hey Jude, right? All You Need Is Love. Those are gimmies. Those are on the radio. You'll hear them all the time. And they're nice songs. They're beautiful songs. But again, I like more about what's going on the album and who it's inspired at the time. Let's just say even a song like, what's got 12 string? George started using a 12-string guitar. And I know, what song is it? Oh God. What you need? Anyway, there's a few that feature that 12-string, and the Byrds ended up perfecting that sound. God, I gotta look it up. Hold on. Here it is. For those watching on YouTube, this is the magazine I got. It's awesome. The Beatles, the Ultimate Album by Album Guide, and I got it because, like I said, each night I give Penny Lane something to read historically, right? And if it's fucking Alexander the Great and the history of Julius Caesar and the Roman Empire, or like Napoleon Bonaparte and the French army, whatever, I know she's not going to absorb that because it's just forced, right? So what I'll do, I'll say, okay, read 4 paragraphs, or let's say 2 pages. Little bit, don't worry about it, Penny. It's going to take 5 to 10 minutes. She's used to it now. Here's this 2 pages on the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper. Read that tonight. And this magazine explains every single song. So some of the things I didn't even realize. So the Beatles for Sale, an early album, song What You're Doing. Stop what you're doing. Feeling blue and lonely. Would it be too much to ask of you what you're doing? Right, that song. I'll get not the best singer, but anyway, let me give you an idea. It's a song that's was fairly popular. Probably doesn't fall in their top 50. Really off the beaten track. You won't hear that on the radio much, even though it's a decent song. They just got so many. They're so deep. But anyway, it says about what you're doing. Reflecting some of McCartney's darker feelings about his relationship with Asher. What you're doing has a propulsive, rolling rhythm and deceptively complicated structure. There's no chorus. It opens with a drum intro, right? Those are things that you would never think of, but there's something. They're new. There's no chorus. It opens with the drums and a 12-string guitar part, anticipating the folk rock sound of the birds echoed in each verse. So right when you hear that, you're going, okay. I love how they say inspiring the folk rock sound of the birds, or anticipating. Because the Birds heard it. Now, again, it doesn't mean the Beatles are better than the Birds. I think they are, a lot of reasons, but don't get offended. Like, people often get offended when I say, "Oh, I'm into the Birds," and they didn't steal from the Beatles. No, they didn't. They're not stealing anything, but just little quirks and quarks in all these albums, right? Influenced generations. It's still bands and artists, right? And there's little tweaks, right? Look at Sgt. Pepper. Like I said, the first album, vinyl of its back then, the vinyl would come in a package, and it would have liner notes in the sleeve, right? And the Beatles put the lyrics in there, and that became a thing right up, and it was a thing on CDs too. Right now, most of us collect online, but if you've got a physical version, whether it's a tape, CD, or especially album, the odds are, if you've got a bunch by your favorite band, at least one of them has the lyrics written on the inside so you can follow along. Again, not overly, it's not like it changed the world or anything, lyrics on an album, but it's just a little more push in the direction that a lot of people, other people started doing. Copying is the wrong word. Influenced is the right word. But anyway, little things like that, right? So anyway, I'm going to get into that. So if you're not into the Beatles, or you don't want to know about why they're important, and I suppose I'm going to make it interesting because I'm going to pick out during this book. Now I'm going to go over the Weekend magazine, and I'm going to figure out some songs to talk about, and I'll try to present it in as entertaining a way as possible. But I get so many messages regarding the Beatles that this next episode, like I said, 195A, or next week's first episode, will definitely deal with some of the Beatles songs and what I can do to point you in the right direction if you're not into them. And if you are into them, it'll confirm what you already know, or maybe I'll try to throw in some tidbits. The last thing I'll say, okay, I just happened to open to Revolver. Tomorrow Never Knows, I just spoke about it. It was the first song recorded for Revolver, but in sequencing for the record, they knew nothing could follow it. All four Beatles were crucial to this massively influential track. Lennon's LSD-soaked lyrics and singing, McCartney's disorienting tape loops, Harrison's tambura, and Starr's proto-electronica drum part. The result was an acid rock masterpiece. It's saying what meditation is all about, said Harrison. The point is that we are the song, right? And that, again, was real new at the time. Electronica was the word I was looking for earlier. You could arguably say that this is the first song of that genre. Anyway, check it out. Penny Lane, you ready to go? Yeah. What time we taking off? I thought you said 3:50. Okay, folks, I've been on here for almost 40 minutes anyway. This has been Tales with TR, episode 194A. Thanks for tuning in. I got a great guest next. As many of you know who've listened in the past, Brad Brown. I spoke highly of him earlier, and I mean that. He's a great person, great friend, great leader, great hockey player. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that. Thanks for tuning in. If you're downtown St. John's and you want to drop into a establishment to watch some live music, have a coffee, have a beer, why not start at Trinity Pub? If you're going to walk up George Street, check out TJ's, check out the Martini Bar, Rob Roy Confusion, of course, Greensleeves, and why not the Bull and Barrel? If you're going to go for a bite to eat, do it at the most new and improved restaurant there is in town, Loose Tie, ran by Danielle Young, doing a hell of a job. Congrats to Danielle. If I was going to go anywhere beyond that, I'd hit Merchant Tavern and Blue on Water, of course. And if I lived in the East End of St. John's, I would go to Wedgwood Cafe every fucking day. Peter Wedgwood, what a guy. They also do catering. if I was going to work out and change my life for the better, if I wanted to strengthen my body and mind, I'd go to Ryan Power Conditioning on Rope Walk Lane. Strength and balance for the body and mind. 2 locations of Mr. Lube right here in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. One's on Camount Road, one's on Torbay Road. Chris Sparks, Mr. Lube. Live, laugh, lube. Pitbull Pain Relief, the pain sticks that just don't quit. Go to pitbullpainrelief.com. See what all the fuss is about. And, of course, True Hockey. Take what's yours. Thanks again to True Hockey for the awesome jacket that they gave me in Brockville and the sticks and all that. I'm waiting on some skates. I'm looking forward to that, too. Thanks to Corey Gregory and True Hockey. Folks, I'll be back just a few days with more Tales with Tierra next week. It's the Beatles and hopefully Jeremy Roenick in back-to-back episodes. Well, we're not going to have the Beatles on, but you know what I'm saying. We're going to talk about my favorite rock and roll band of all time and follow that up with Jeremy Roenick. Folks, I'll be back in just a few days. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the rebound. Be well.